If you thought the Grim Reaper was spooky, wait until you meet the Keres, winged spirits that feed on death like it's their favorite snack. Welcome to Mythic Lounge, where we shine a spotlight on the darkest corners of mythology, and today's corner is really dark. We're talking about the Keres, those terrifying, bloodthirsty spirits who haunted the battlefields of ancient Greece. Imagine a squad of flying death dealers, ready to feast on your soul. Yeah, not exactly who you want showing up to your next party. Before we dive into the carnage, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more mythic madness. Trust me, this is a story that'll make you glad you weren't born in ancient times. All right, let's break it down. The Keres, pronounced Keres or Keres, depending on your vibe, were these super creepy female death spirits in Greek mythology. Picture winged women with razor-sharp claws, fanged teeth, and a thirst for carnage. They weren't your friendly neighborhood goddesses. They were the embodiment of violent, gruesome death. Think of them as the cleanup crew for Hades. They'd swoop onto battlefields, seeking out the wounded and dying, and then, well, they'd feast on their souls and blood. Yeah, these ladies weren't showing up with get-well-soon cards. The Keres weren't just random monsters. They were part of a seriously messed up family. Their mom? None other than Nyx, the primordial goddess of the night. Nyx had a knack for giving birth to all the creepiest entities in Greek mythology. We're talking Hypnos, sleep, Thanatos, death, and the Fates. Basically, if Nyx invited you to a family dinner, you'd want to stay far, far away. While their dad isn't always mentioned, some myths say Erebus, the god of darkness, might have been involved. I mean, night and darkness teaming up to create the Keres? Makes sense, right? Now you might be wondering, what exactly did the Keres do? Great question. Their main gig was haunting battlefields and preying on soldiers who were wounded but not quite dead yet. It's like they had a sixth sense for sniffing out pain and suffering. Once they found their victim, they'd swoop down, tear them apart, and devour their soul. Not a peaceful passing, that's for sure. The Greeks believed the more violent your death, the more likely a Keres was involved. They were the ultimate vultures of the mythological world, circling until it was feeding time. Now let's clear up some confusion. You might be thinking, wait, isn't Thanatos the god of death? How's he different from the Keres? Great question. Thanatos was like the chill, professional version of death. He'd show up, gently take your soul, and escort it to the underworld. No mess, no fuss. The Keres, on the other hand, were pure chaos. They didn't just escort souls, they tore them out with claws and teeth, leaving behind a bloody mess. It's like comparing a funeral director to a pack of hyenas. Thanatos might handle your passing with dignity, but if the Keres got to you first, well, let's just say your afterlife entrance would be a little rough. The Greeks believed the Keres were most active during wars. Imagine you're a soldier on the battlefield, and you're already having a bad day. Arrows flying, swords clashing, chaos everywhere. Then out of nowhere, you see these shadowy, winged figures circling above, waiting for you to get hit. Talk about a morale killer. The Keres didn't just prey on any death, they thrived on violent, bloody ones. The more painful and gruesome your demise, the happier they were. Ancient soldiers probably looked up and thought, yeah, dying's bad enough, but getting eaten by a Keres? Hard pass. So where do the Keres show up in Greek mythology? While they're not the stars of any major myths, they're definitely mentioned in some epic tales. Take the Iliad, for example. During the Trojan War, the Keres are described as hovering over the battlefield, eager to claim the dying. Homer paints a grim picture of these spirits as relentless and unavoidable, like a bad hangover, but with claws and wings. They also pop up in the works of Hesiod, who described them as dark, terrifying creatures that brought death and doom. Basically, if Hesiod was writing about you, you knew you were bad news. Now here's a question. Could you avoid the Keres? Well, kind of. The Greeks believed that certain rituals, charms, or even divine intervention could protect you. Warriors often prayed to the gods for a clean death, one where Thanatos, not the Keres, would take their soul. In some cases, powerful heroes or gods could fend off the Keres. For example, in some versions of myths, Zeus or Athena might intervene to protect their favorite mortals. But let's be real. If you're relying on Zeus for help, you might want to have a backup plan. Fast forward to today, and the Keres have found their way into modern pop culture. They're not as well known as some of the flashier Greek figures, but they've made appearances in video games, novels, and even tabletop RPGs. If you've played games like Hades or God of War, you've probably encountered enemies inspired by the Keres. They're usually portrayed as shadowy, winged harbingers of doom, staying true to their mythological roots. And let's not forget modern horror and fantasy stories, because what's scarier than a winged spirit that feeds on your soul? The Keres are a perfect fit for any story that wants to dial up the creep factor. Let's get a little deep for a second. The Keres symbolize the inevitability of death, especially the violent, untimely kind. In a way, they're a reminder of how fragile life can be and how quickly things can go from bad to worse. But they also represent the darker side of war. Ancient Greeks didn't glorify battle without acknowledging its brutality, and the Keres were the embodiment of that brutal reality. They weren't just monsters. They were a reflection of the fears and horrors that came with war. So why should we care about the Keres today? Because their story is a stark reminder of the human cost of violence. In a world that's still grappling with conflict and loss, the Keres remind us of the importance of striving for peace. And let's be honest, who doesn't love a good spooky myth? The Keres tap into our primal fears of death and the unknown, which makes their stories timeless and endlessly fascinating. And that's the story of the Keres, the terrifying spirits of violent death who ruled the battlefields of ancient Greece. From their gruesome job description to their haunting symbolism, the Keres are some of mythology's darkest and most fascinating figures. Now, I want to hear from you. Would you rather face a Keres on the battlefield or try your luck with Thanatos? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Greek mythology, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Mythic Lounge, and ring that bell so you don't miss our next epic tale. Trust me, there's always more mythic madness to uncover. Keep an eye on the skies, just in case the Keres decide to pay a visit. See you in the next one.